surgery. So this brings us to maybe the next big thing. So it's been 1994 was when paclitaxel was approved for breast cancer, 24 years ago. And not despite the lack of interest or work, we don't have an oral taxane. So tell us about Tesetaxel. How does it work? What are some potential advantages to this drug, and what do we know about it?
Yeah, it's really interesting because there's a number of oral taxanes out there. You know, there's been a big interest in this for a long time. I just think it's taken some time for some of these formulations to actually get legs, you know, get some traction. So Tesetaxel is a novel taxane. So it's not just paclitaxel, you know, put into a formulation that can withstand the stomach acid, you know, such as a lipid formulation. It's a novel taxane. It's got the same taxane structure, but it's got two moieties that are nitrogen-based on it, specifically to help oral bioavailability, which is quite good. About 50 to 60% of the Tesetaxel is orally bioavailable compared to, you know, low single digits, you know, for the other taxanes, or one is 18% for Dosi and maybe, you know, 6% for Pacli or something. But also, it's not a substrate for P-glycoprotein. So important with regard to oral absorption, but also, of course, some of our more resistant cancers that really have, you know, upregulation of the PGP and resistance on that basis. It also, this agent's very interesting to me because it's got a really long half-life, over 8 days. And the other taxanes, both paclitaxel and docetaxel, are about 11 hours. So much longer half-life, which lends itself to every 3-weekly administration. There's been some work looking at weekly, and I think there's probably more exploration to be done there over time. But with an 8-hour half-life, it really leads itself to an every 3-weekly dosing interval.
Yeah, so in the trial that we collaborated in, and I wish Lee Schwartzberg were here to be sitting with us, because Lee was also very important in that trial. We studied this drug on an every 3-weekly basis, and I can't think of too many other examples where an oral agent caused tumor regression dosed every 3 weeks. I'm sure there might be other drugs in other disease entities, but an oral agent every 3 weeks, you know, in the phase 2 trial that we presented at ASCO, to see 44% of patients responding to every 3-week dosing. And we did study some weekly dosing as well. It didn't seem to be any advantage.
Better, right?
Yeah.
Any real advantage there. Yeah, those are really exciting data. To see with, you know, pills just once every 3 weeks, leading to a response rate 44%. The waterfall plot is very, very impressive because very few patients progressed. I mean, just a few, and everybody had some reduction in tumor volume, whether it made the formal, you know, PR 44%, but others also had prolonged stable disease. So it's very, very highly active.
At a Tesetaxel dose of 27 milligrams per meter squared, the pill burden is quite modest, so patients aren't taking, you know, 10 or 12 pills a day. There's no cremophore, there's no polysorbate, so hypersensitivity reactions weren't common, weren't observed. Less neuropathy, apparent less neuropathy because we don't have a direct comparison. Some neutropenia, not a whole lot. So this was interesting. And you may know something about the history of this molecule in terms of.
Yes, it was, you know, initially developed a few years back, you know, with in the phase 1 setting. We actually participated in some of the early phase 1-2 work, you know, with it, and I think it was also, of course, developed in gastric cancer as well. And so there was some initial, you know, interest and development, but then it changed hands.
Yeah, it changed hands. It was originally, I believe it was a Daiichi Sankyo drug, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yes, absolutely right.
Genta Pharmaceuticals
purchased
and was developing it, and we were involved in that development. Genta ran into some financial difficulties. The drugs kind of sat in a closet on a shelf until a group of investors came around and thought this was worth pursuing. So, so we've We've cleaned up our data from that trial, and hopefully we'll publish that soon.